giving me this opportunity to talk about the bills that we will do in session that will help us in Virginia Beach and for our region. Well, this will help everybody actually. So real estate is my expertise. I used to be a teacher, but I am now in real estate, and I'm able to kind of see some of the holes that we have in our disclosures that we give people when they move to a new home or buy a new home, rent a new home. And I'm going to start with, I have two bills that are going to be, I'm introducing this session. These two, one has a number, an HB 1879, and this one doesn't yet. So we're making a tweak on this, and it should have a number in the next few days. And the reason we're making a tweak is actually because this one is actually about the part of the law, the part of the state law that says that you have to disclose things to new homeowners. If you are buying a home, you should know several things, and then there are things that you just have to find out yourself. If, and the part of the law, I will go ahead and pull out the bill itself. And it's the draft, because we are still working on a new draft, because we are actually going to add it to another section of the code. So right now the code says that the owner of residential real estate shall give certain things, information out. And then there are a lot of things that they don't have to disclose. And a lot of people have asked me, do you have to disclose if it's haunted, if somebody's died there? No, nothing, none of those things have to be disclosed. There are very specific things that have to be disclosed when you sell a house. And if you are in a flood zone, is not one of them. So I will show you the exact changes that are made. This is the current law. And then we are striking a section of the law that says that the owner makes no disclosure, requiring that they make no disclosure, or actually saying that they don't have to make any disclosure about the code, about the flood zone. And then on the second part, it adds in a section that says you have to disclose if it's in a flood zone right up front. So this is very comparable to what the law already says about if your home is in a noise zone or a crash zone with our military bases in our region. We already have to disclose that. We already have to disclose if it was built before 1978, if they have any knowledge of lead-based paint, and we also have to disclose if it was previously used as a methamphetamine lab. Those are things that are required to be disclosed to a new buyer and a new renter in that case. In our Landlord-Tenant Act, there are certain requirements that a landlord has to disclose to their tenant. And so we are adding this to both sections of the law, because if you're moving into an apartment that floods, you should know if okay, this is a flood zone, maybe I want to get flood insurance, or maybe I don't even want to live there. But this isn't about a loan, it's not about flood insurance, it's more about just to be able to have that basic knowledge that this is a flood zone, this is where I live, which is very similar to if we're in a crash zone or a noise zone with the jet noise, and you can choose to live there or you can choose not to. So I know there have been some asks about if a house is flooded and for that to be disclosed. This is step one to having a disclosure, first of all, if you are even in a flood zone. And I think that people would want to know that before they move in, before they get so far into their contract and are about to close and realize that, do we really buy this place? We just found out it requires flood insurance, and now our payments are hundreds of dollars more, and we have to just accept it or move on. And most people at that point, right before closing, are kind of stuck in their contract. Actually, they can't even get out of it if they wanted to. So knowing up front will help sellers, because then they don't have to worry about a deal falling through. The lender doesn't have to worry about flood insurance popping up later. Renters will know if they need flood insurance and if they want to live somewhere else if their car might flood. So this is a kind of a no-brainer. In the real estate world, everybody thinks it's a great idea. So let's make sure we talk to our delegates and senators and make sure they know they need to pass this. So not even just in Virginia Beach, all over. We need to make sure that they know. When I get a bill number, I'll make sure I pass it along, and we want to write an email, and I'll pass that information about how to go ahead and let your legislator know that you want this to pass. And then I also have the other bill. It's another disclosure bill, and it has to do, and it does have a number, and you can go look at that at the state site, but it is HB, what is it? 1879. And it is another disclosure, and it's about stormwater maintenance facilities on your property. Now, this is not about renters, because this would be where someone has to maybe maintain a BMP that's on their property.
What's a BMP?
A BMP, a best management practice. We commonly refer them to like those ponds that fill up and all our stormwater goes into. So we see them all over. There's a ton of them, but who maintains them? Sometimes the city is responsible for the dredging, sometimes the HOA or the homeowner. But when you buy a house, you should know who's responsible for the maintenance up front. So let me get the bill out. It actually was added about 10 years ago. I looked into the history about it, that it was actually added where they said, okay, no, let's add it in that they don't have to disclose about a stormwater maintenance facility on your property, which is kind of odd, like how that bill ever came up. I couldn't find any history on it. It was a delegate who's not there anymore, so I wasn't able to get more information. But it was specifically added to the code for a reason. So someone decided to put it in, okay, let's make sure we tell people they don't have to disclose this. So it's the same section of the law, and the reason I don't have the draft is because, you know, we're still working on it. Oh, I'm sorry, this is the draft. This one is the draft, HB 1879. Now, when you're looking at the code and the bills, you will see that we've highlighted, but really anything italicized is changed and stricken through. So those are the changes. Other than that, it's the existing law. So again, we created a section at the bottom that says that you have to disclose this if you know about it, if you have knowledge, just like any other thing. And then up here, we actually take it out because actually it was written in there before that says, hey, if you have a very specific thing to kind of put into the law, the owner makes no representation with respect to the presence of any stormwater detention facility located on this property or any maintenance agreement of for such facility. And I think if you're buying a property, you should know if you have to maintain something that accommodates the entire neighborhood and that you could potentially be filling it in and not even know or not maintaining it, which is, I have a lot of situations where this has happened. We had to add it in 2 sections of the law because we needed to require these management agreements to be recorded. So this is a section of the water board that talks about, you know, having to require those maintenance agreements to be recorded. They're starting to do that. The city is starting to do that. Some localities have been doing it a lot longer, where if we say that you have a stormwater maintenance facility, a dry pond, it could be a big dry pond that never fills up, but somebody has to maintain it. So, and this did happen out in SeaTac actually, and the whole neighborhood goes through this one yard, and now it fills up with snakes. They didn't have any clue that they were supposed to maintain it. It was a recorded maintenance agreement actually. So this part of the law that wasn't in place, but it was recorded by the builder, but then they never transferred it and made no representation that the new buyer, and he was military as well, bought this new house, and he had no idea he had to maintain this thing that ended up overtaking his yard. So these are real situations and real issues that we're having in Virginia Beach, and I think that it's really important to kind of come up with solutions, and I hope that you can support the bills, and I hope you can help us with them, letting our senators and fellow legislators and delegates in Virginia Beach know, and everywhere, because we're all going to have to vote on it. But when it goes to committee, I'll let Virginia know, and I'll let Stop the Flooding Now know, so you guys can make sure you weigh in and we do keep track of all that communication. We need constituents to be talking to their legislators in session. It's fast. It's only 45 days, and all the laws you live by, except for those small bits of federal, most of our laws, our state, are going to get passed this session. So get involved, and please, know that these are bills that are for our city.
So we have a question.
Okay.
Rebecca Lear says, so when is the General Assembly, I guess, going to require disclosure of flood risk or previous flooding?
Well, that's something we could work on in the future. If we got to get this one passed first, just to, in general, say flood zone. Even if we drafted that right now, I don't think we would have a shot at all. I'm already having a little bit of trouble getting the Realtors Association, the Builders Association on board with being okay with this. They definitely don't want to have to add anything new to require. I mean, I get that. But, in Richmond, during General Assembly, when I go and speak on the bill in the committee, the only people there to speak or to hear from are the lobbyists. It gets a little hard, so we kind of rely on their judgment. So I really need you guys to kind of reach out. If we can get this one thing passed, it's a long-term goal of kind of getting us to where we are well-informed as citizens as to the flooding risks in our area. So absolutely, we need to get to a place where everybody's comfortable and get the realtors involved. But please, that's one big thing I would say is this is step one, so we need your help.
So you represent the 21st district. So if Ms. Lear doesn't live in the 21st, who should she contact?
Well, I can get you the information that would kind of lead your group to your organization and their members to their correct delegate and their correct legislator, because you're going to have a senator and you're going to have a state senator and a delegate that overlap. So I am in my own district, obviously 21, but then my senator is actually Senator Crossgrove. And in my district, though, there's several senators. So if you did want to reach out to my office, we can help. You figure that out, or I can probably, the best way would be to kind of let Virginia get that information posted to stop the flooding now. Because this is the point, we get people elected, we need to hold them accountable, but we also need to really make sure that during session we're